Hello everyone, my name is Tripp Welge. I think the programs, if you guys were looking for Jed Korenthal, are going to disappoint you. He got a little ill and asked me to fill in for him. So I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Phenix, and we'll cover the same subject matter, give you guys an overview of what's going on in the gaming and gambling space as it relates to sports and video. So to open up, we'll just give you a quick state of video as we see it from kind of a video provider. So if you want to roll this quick, 45-second demo loop we created, I'll walk you through it as we show it. But we took some samples from the Super Bowl that took place very recently, and just wanted to demonstrate to you all what's taking place as it relates to video latency. So how long does it take for a video to get produced and streamed out to an audience? And what's happening in the stadium is the touchdown is thrown and folks are celebrating, and the delays, the latency that takes place on the videos can be quite significant. So, as Phenix real-time solutions, we deliver video in half a second. We do it very quickly. It's got a lot of implications that we'll talk to you guys all about as it relates to gambling. But from an OTT app perspective, this is what's kind of holding back the consumer experience and the gambling piece. So, NFL.com, Xfinity, all these OTT apps are delivering these videos in 30, 60, 90 seconds, and it's really holding back. Certainly in-play betting and some other really interesting characteristics are opened up if you can solve this video latency problem. So with that quick demo aside, we'll flip over and walk you guys through some slides, which will help tell the story that we're here talking about in a little more meaningful way. So it's no surprise, there we go. So just at a quick glance, most of you are here either learning about sports betting or know a fair amount about it, and it's a really big market. I'd say that the biggest case study to look at today is the United Kingdom and the UK. So billions of dollars are being wagered there. A lot of it is taking place online. The natural question here is how is this going to unfold in the US? And we're starting to see state after state kind of go live on sports betting, and the online piece of that is what's going to follow eventually. So we've got 8 states with legalized betting today. It's estimated that these are going to begin generating hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue. And what we're seeing is that the conventional streaming applications that we just showed you an example of are not fit to deliver what should be a next generation high quality sports betting experience. So if you look at the UK as kind of the model, they make a lot of money on certainly the spend and the wagering that's going on. They're also selling a lot of advertising and sponsorships on jerseys, on logos, so it's pretty much front and center. And the value of these firms that have created is really tremendous. I think a handful of them that might be listed are showing enterprise values well in excess of multi-billion-dollar companies. So it's a really interesting thing to look at as you think about where the U.S. might head. As you look at just the popularity there, it's no surprise that so much of this is done online in the UK, and that's where the power can be unlocked as you look at the U.S. So how is the U.S. unfolding? So I think this is what is at the top of mind for pretty much everyone who's trying to understand a little bit more about betting and where it's going to unfold. So, at Phenix and Jed, who was going to be here, would tell you as kind of our de facto betting guru. He thinks about it, kind of once you get the couple dozen range, so 20, 25 states where there's an active model is really where the acceleration is going to start taking place for sports betting. So we've got 8 states where it's legal today. Only a handful of those have it online. So step 1 is getting the licenses and getting the state model. Step 2 is then bringing that online and begin to see that. So there's a couple bills that have been passed very recently, which will be exciting, not the least of which is Washington, D.C. and New York. And then there's a bunch of bills that have started getting introduced at the state level. So it is up to the states to pass these, and with the dozen and a half or so that are there, we're going to hit this kind of critical mass here in the next year or two, and really start seeing stuff unfolding. So as you look at just the obligatory graph of where the growth is heading, it's no surprise that this would be billions and billions of dollars being pumped into this, and online is going to play a really meaningful part of that, and video, of course. We'll get to that and talk about it. And Another very interesting kind of subset of the dynamic that's unfolding is that there's a tremendous amount of this that's being driven by young markets. And in the UK, you can gamble at different ages, so some of this data isn't necessarily applicable to the US, where you've got to be 21, of course. But I think the point is that, and we'll touch on this in a second, the driving factors are this interactivity and the engagement that starts to take place when you talk about it. It's no surprise you think about the millennials and younger, they're keen on all this interactivity, and that's where we believe the power of video is going to start unfolding. So in the US, you've got properties, so you've got the rights, the creators, the content creators, the sports leagues, the people with the stuff to watch. You've got this interaction between the social folks who, you're getting tweets out there, you're finding other ways to watch and consume content. You've got experts and odds makers that are building the algorithms to trigger the betting. You've got the sports books who are relying on all of that and building the applications, and they're marrying that with data that's coming out of the sport radars of the world and the NBA, out of the stadium, all that data. And then, there are some platforms that are starting to emerge where it's another means to offer, who's going to be making odds and watching, and a means to hear what, professional odds makers are saying. So some really interesting dynamics unfolding, and in a slide or two we'll show you how confusing this can be and why this is really interesting. But the key piece here is the sports betting element is really driving fan engagement. So something like 25 or 30% of non-sports viewers are going to be more interested in watching content if they had money wagers. And that kind of speaks to some of the engagement demographics we were showing earlier. And 38% said they'd watch more if they had money wagered on a game, and another handful find it more attractive in general. So it's a very engagement-driven model and a way to do it. And as you're looking at tying together what we showed 2 slides ago to now, it's a really evolving ecosystem, and it's really confusing. So you've got these rights holders, you've got big betting houses, casinos with all kinds of money behind them, trying to get their hands on rights and figuring out ways to pull it in. They need the data, and they need to trigger all of this. And a lot of this is really unfolding before our eyes right now. So I think that you take meetings at places like NAB here, and you're talking to folks, and are the leagues, looking to kind of go it alone? Are they going to be talking to FanDuels? Are they going to be, kind of partnering with the MGMs? And you're kind of seeing everyone start to, pick their dance party to some extent. And we'll watch this unfold before our very eyes over the next several months and years. But the remaining challenge, no matter how the chips fall, and no matter what the outcome of how these partnerships take shape, the current means of distributing video is holding back unlocking the true value of sports betting. So these long video delays, the 45 seconds we showed of the Super Bowl, is really reducing the consumer's ability to bet in-game. It's locking up too much spend, and the key to unlocking that is really reducing that latency. So, we shorten betting windows if the latency is too high. It frustrates consumers. It creates doubt as to whether it's a fair playing field. So 45, 60 seconds behind, that is it a truly fair game that you're playing. And that's what creates this potential for fraud or arbitrage. So I'll talk to you now a little bit about what Phenix is doing. I think we showed a touch of this earlier, which is just the average latencies, and we're talking about this, reducing this. Just for the Super Bowl that took place just a few months ago, on every major application, the average consumer was 30 to 45 seconds behind. Another interesting fact within that is within the single application, those latencies can vary greatly. So just because one consumer is 28 seconds behind on CBS Sports doesn't mean everyone is. Some of them can be 90 seconds. So there's this problem is really pervasive, and it obviously hits kind of every major player out there. And there's just better ways to be doing this, and sports betting, has a pretty bright future for it when you start thinking about reducing video latency. So at Phenix, our solutions kind of reduce that, that 30 to 90 seconds down to 500 milliseconds, and we do that across an entire audience. We do that to a broadcast-sized audience, and we also synchronize that video. So the drift I was talking about within an application is shrunk down. We think this is really powerful, and many of our customers and prospects that we're here, meeting with, over the next couple of days, see that value and know that it is the kind of the key to the castle, if you will. So we threw together a very quick kind of like, what does this kind of look like? And in the app, you should be prop betting. So that the future of betting is in video or in sports is driven by this video piece, but it's also driven by the in-game bet. So it's not what's the money line, who's going to hit it, but it's more about who's going to make that field goal. Is he going to make it? Is he going to miss it? Is Tiger Woods going to make this 6-foot putt? We know that the odds of him doing it is 42%. Is he going to make it? What are the odds? How do you capture more spend and do that? And you do that through low latency video with really critical kind of overlays that get laid in to trigger those betting events. And again, to kind of tie this back to the UK a little bit, you're seeing regulatory environment change, and that's reducing the amount you can wager on at a single time online. So you need more opportunities to bet, and one way to do that is to unlock the in-game, kind of prop bets. And low latency video is really the critical piece to that. So, just quick wrap up here. Obviously, we're looking at a really big market. I think the chips are still on the table, and people are beginning to find their dance partners with the data and the odds makers and everything else. But it's going to be a really significant business, and it's going to be driven by this in-game prop betting. In the U.S., we're going to watch as more states pass these laws. We think we'll kind of be in the 30 to 40 range by 2022, 2023. And then we really view real-time streaming as a critical piece of that. Obviously, Phenix was built to do that, but there's a number of partners out there that are kind of moving this ecosystem forward. And I think it's going to be a tremendous benefit for all of these odds makers and everyone else who has rights to this content. I think the leagues as well. So just to wrap it up entirely, if there's any questions about this, I'd be happy to take them. Our booth is nearby with Phenix, and we do have a handful of experts in this space, some of which are here, others which Jed in particular, we get calls lined up and other things. So thank you very much for your time. I think we may, if we have a minute or two,